Hey guys, tonight we slip into the shimmering, treacherous world of ancient Egypt's royal court, where you're a maid, scurrying through golden halls that hum with danger. Picture this. You're barefoot, the cool limestone floor kissing your soles, while torchlight flickers on walls carved with gods who seem to watch your every move. The air smells of lotus perfume and intrigue, and you're clutching a tray of honeyed figs praying you don't trip. One wrong step in this place, and, spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. The court is a maze of power plays, and you're not just cleaning rooms, you're dodging plots thicker than Nile mud. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and what time it is where you are. I love picturing you all out there, tucked in for this tale. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into the court, wide-eyed, a new maid in Pharaoh's glittering palace. It's not what you imagined back in your village, where life was reeds and riverbank simplicity. Here, the walls gleam with lapis lazuli, and nobles glide past in pleated linen, their eyes sharp as hawks. You're handed a broom and told to keep the floor spotless, but the real job is staying alive. The court is a hive of whispers, every glance, every word, a potential trap. You notice the other maids, their faces blank but their eyes darting. They know something you don't. One older maid, her fingers gnarled from years of service, mutters, "Keep your ears open but your mouth shut." You nod, unsure what she means, but her warning sticks like damp clay. The mainstream fact is clear. Ancient Egyptian courts, especially during the New Kingdom around 1500 BCE, were centers of immense power, where pharaohs like Ramses II ruled as living gods. Their palaces weren't just homes. They were political arenas where nobles, priests, and even servants played deadly games for influence. You're not just sweeping, you're in the middle of it. The quirky tidbit: maids often doubled as informants, paid to eavesdrop on nobles' private chats. Imagine you, dusting a statue of Anubis, catching a noble's treasonous whisper about poisoning the pharaoh's wine. Report it, and you might get a loaf of bread. Stay silent, and you're complicit. Historians still argue whether maids were more victims or cunning players in these schemes. Some say they held real sway. Others call them pawns. Your first task is simple. Polish the throne room's alabaster vases. Easy, right? Except the vases are taller than you and one wobble could shatter a fortune. You climb a rickety stool, cloth in hand, heart pounding. A noble strides in, arguing with a vizier about grain taxes. You freeze, pretending to be invisible, but their words, something about a rival kingdom's envoy, burn into your memory. Do you tell someone? Who? The wrong choice could land you in a crocodile pit. Joke number 1. You thought your village's gossip about whose cow ate whose barley was drama. Try surviving a court where a misplaced sandal could spark a coup. The air grows heavy as evening falls, incense curling from braziers. You're sent to fetch water for a priestess's ritual, but the path takes you past the royal harem's guarded doors. You hear giggles, then a sharp cry. Someone's in trouble. Your broom feels useless now, a flimsy shield against the court's shadows. Another maid hisses, "Don't look!" And you obey. But curiosity gnaws. What's behind those doors? You're starting to realize this place isn't just beautiful, it's a gilded cage, and you're locked inside. Joke 2. You'd trade this palace for a hut if it meant not dodging death before breakfast. By night, you collapse onto a straw mat in the servants' quarters, the day's heat lingering in your bones. The other maids whisper about a noble who vanished last week, supposedly for disloyalty. You pull your thin blanket tighter, wondering if you'll make it through tomorrow. The court's dazzle is fading, replaced by a creeping dread. You're not just a maid. You're a speck in a storm of ambition, and survival means learning fast. Joke 3. If you knew maid meant part-time spy, full-time target, you'd have stayed home and married that fisherman with the wonky teeth. You're up before dawn, the palace still cloaked in shadows, but the servants' quarters buzz with quiet urgency. Your bare feet slap against the cool stone as you grab a clay jug and join the other maids heading to the kitchens. Yesterday's warning, keep your ears open, mouth shut, loops in your mind. You're starting to understand. Maids don't just clean, they listen. The court's secrets are a currency, and you're already behind. You pass a corridor where torchlight glints off a guard's spear, his eyes tracking you. Is he suspicious or just bored? You can't tell, but your pulse quickens. The air smells of baking bread and something sharper. Fear? Maybe yours. In the kitchens, you're tasked with arranging fruit for a noble's breakfast. Pomegranates, figs, and dates glisten like jewels. But you overhear two cooks muttering about a vizier's late-night meeting with a foreign trader. Treason? Trade? You don't know, but their glances shut you out. You focus on the fruit, stacking it perfectly, but your ears strain for more. The mainstream fact anchors you. Egyptian courts thrived on espionage, with servants often acting as the pharaoh's eyes and ears, especially during the 18th dynasty when diplomacy was a high-stakes game. A quirky tidbit spices it up. Some maids were trained to memorize conversations verbatim, like human scrolls, their minds a library of secrets. Historians still argue whether these women were coerced or willingly played the spy game for rewards like extra rations or protection. You're sent to sweep the hypostyle hall, its towering columns carved with hieroglyphs that seem to pulse in the flickering light. As you work, two nobles pass, their voices low. The Hittite envoy arrives tomorrow, one says. Pharaoh mustn't know about the gold. You freeze, broom mid-sweep. Gold? What gold? Your heart says run, but your feet stay rooted. If you report this, you might save the pharaoh, or doom yourself if the nobles find out. Joke 1. Back home, the worst secret was your neighbor stealing melons. Here, it's a plot that could topple an empire. The day drags, each task layering on dread. You're polishing a bronze mirror when a senior maid pulls you aside. Heard anything unusual? She asks, her eyes like knives. You stammer, unsure if she's testing you or fishing for gossip to sell. You mumble something vague, and she smirks, leaving you rattled. The court's a spider web, and you're a fly, wings already caught. You're sent to fetch linen from the weavers, passing a courtyard where scribes scribble on papyrus. One drops a reed pen, and you pick it up, earning a nod. For a moment, you feel human, not invisible. But then you overhear them mention a disloyal maid punished last week, whipped and sent to the quarries. Your stomach twists. By afternoon, you're scrubbing tiles in a lesser noble's chamber. The room's empty, but a half-open chest reveals a clay tablet etched with strange symbols. Not Egyptian. You don't touch it, but its presence burns into you. Do you report it? Ignore it? The wrong move could end you. Joke 2. You thought scrubbing floors was the worst part of this job. Turns out, it's scrubbing floors while playing spy roulette. Night falls, and you're back in the kitchens, stacking amphorae of wine. A steward whispers to another about a banquet tomorrow, hinting at a special guest. You catch the word poison and nearly drop a jug. Is it real or just court gossip? You're too low to know, but too involved to escape. The other maids avoid your gaze, each guarding their own secrets. You lie on your mat later, the straw poking your back, wondering how long you can keep silent without sinking. Joke 3. If eavesdropping were an Olympic sport, you'd have gold, but also a one-way ticket to the afterlife. The palace hums with unseen eyes, and you're learning fast. Every word you hear is a blade, and you're not the one wielding it. Tomorrow, you'll face the pharaoh himself, and the stakes will climb higher. For now, you close your eyes. The distant Niles murmur your only comfort, and pray you wake up unnoticed. The sun's barely up, but you're already sweating, tugging a coarse linen tunic over your shoulders as the palace stirs. Today, you're assigned to the pharaoh's private chambers, a rare, terrifying honor. You shuffle behind a senior maid, her face etched with warnings she doesn't voice. The corridors feel narrower, the air thick with myrrh and expectation. Guards flank the entrance, their bronze spears glinting like teeth. You lower your eyes, clutching a basket of fresh linens, and step into the divine shadow of the pharaoh, a man whose word is life or death. One misstep here, and you're not just fired, you're erased. The chamber's a world of opulence. Alabaster walls glow under torchlight, and a golden falcon statue looms over a cedar bed draped in gossamer. You're told to arrange the linens, but your hands tremble. The pharaoh isn't here yet, but his presence lingers, heavy as the heat. You glimpse his sandals, studded with lapis, and wonder how someone so human can be called a god. The mainstream fact grounds you. Pharaohs, like Akhenaten in the 14th century BCE, were seen as divine intermediaries, their every whim tied to Egypt's cosmic order. A quirky tidbit adds flavor. Maids sometimes sniffed Pharaoh's laundry to check for illness. Gross, but a clue to his mortality. Historians still argue whether pharaohs truly believed their divinity or used it as a political prop. You smooth the bed's linens, each fold a prayer for perfection. A vizier sweeps in, barking orders about a Hittite envoy's visit. You shrink against the wall, but his words, something about a tribute gone missing, stick like burrs. You're invisible, yet dangerously exposed. If you report this, will the pharaoh reward you or suspect you? Joke 1. You thought folding laundry was dull. Try folding it while dodging a divine tantrum. Mid-morning, the pharaoh arrives. You kneel, forehead to the floor, as his sandals slap past. His voice, calm but commanding, orders a fan-bearer to adjust the ostrich plumes. You steal a glance. He's tall, kohl-rimmed eyes scanning the room. Does he see you? You hope not. Your task shifts to polishing a jade scarab amulet, its surface cool but heavy with meaning. Drop it and you're cursed, or worse, whipped. The senior maid hisses, "Eyes down!" And you obey, but the pharaoh's laughter, sharp and sudden, makes you flinch. He's joking with a noble, but you're not privy to the punchline. By noon, you're sent to fetch lotus flowers for his offering table. The garden's a brief escape, but even here, danger lurks. A scribe lingers nearby, muttering about a prophecy. You catch flood and displeased gods. Do you tell someone? The wrong move could brand you a troublemaker. Joke 2. You'd trade this divine job for herding goats. At least they don't smite you for a crooked petal. Afternoon brings a new terror. You're to fan the pharaoh during a council meeting. You stand behind his throne, palm frond swaying, as nobles debate grain shortages. Their eyes flick to you, suspicious, as if you understand their coded talk. You don't, but you hear rebellion and Thebes. Your arms ache, but stopping isn't an option. The pharaoh's silence feels like a storm brewing. You're a speck in his world, yet one wrong wave of the fan could draw his wrath. Night falls, and you're back in the servants' quarters, body aching, mind racing. The other maids whisper about a guard who displeased the pharaoh and vanished. You pull your blanket tight, the straw mat scratching your skin. Joke 3. If surviving this court were a game, you'd need infinite lives and a cheat code for "Don't anger the God King." Tomorrow, you're on food duty, and the stakes climb higher. For now, you close your eyes. The palaces hum a restless lullaby, and pray you stay unseen. You're roused by a sharp nudge, the pre-dawn air chilly despite the desert heat waiting outside. Today, you're on food duty. A task that sounds simple but feels like walking a tightrope over a pit of asps. You stumble to the kitchens, where the clatter of clay pots and the scent of roasting goose fill the air. Your job is to prepare and serve the pharaoh's meal, but there's a catch. You're also a taster, the first to sip from his cup or nibble his bread. One bad bite, and you're not just sick, you're gone. The other maids avoid your gaze, their silence louder than the cook's shouts. You grip a tray, palms slick, and wonder if today's the day you taste death. The kitchen's a chaos of steam and spices, with servants darting between ovens and vats of barley stew. You're handed a bronze goblet of wine and a plate of honeyed quail, meant for the pharaoh's midday meal. Before it reaches him, you must taste both. Your mouth dries as you lift the goblet, its rim cool against your lips. The wine's tart, but is that a bitter edge? You swallow, waiting for a burn that doesn't come. The quail's next, its glaze sticky on your fingers. You nibble, heart hammering, but nothing happens. Yet. The mainstream fact steadies you. Food tasters were common in Egyptian courts, especially during the New Kingdom, to protect pharaohs from poison amid constant political plots. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some tasters were chosen for their sensitive tongues, believed to detect toxins by taste alone. Talk about a deadly job perk. Historians still argue whether poisoning was as rampant as records suggest or exaggerated to justify purges. You carry the tray to the dining hall, a vast room with walls painted in scenes of Nile hunts. The pharaoh isn't here, but nobles lounge, their chatter a low hum of power plays. You set the tray before a vizier, who inspects it like you've hidden a scorpion in the sauce. "Tasted?" he barks. You nod, throat tight, and he waves you off. As you retreat, you overhear two nobles whispering about a gift for the Hittite envoy. Dates stuffed with something special. Poison? You don't know, but the word sticks like a splinter. Joke 1. You thought your village's stew was risky. Here, every bite's a roll of the dice with Anubis. Midday, you're back in the kitchen, grinding cumin for a banquet. The head cook, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, mutters about a maid who tasted wrong last month and was sent to the quarries. You grind faster, the stone pestle heavy in your hands. A younger maid slips you a fig, a rare kindness, but you hesitate. Is it safe? You eat it, and she giggles. Not everything's poisoned, you know. You force a smile, but trust is a luxury you can't afford. By afternoon, you're serving at the banquet, weaving through nobles with a jug of beer. The pharaoh's there, his golden collar gleaming, but you keep your eyes down. A noble grabs your arm, demanding more beer, and you pour, praying you don't spill. His companion mutters about a rival's accident last week, a fall from a balcony. You pretend not to hear, but your knees wobble. Joke 2. If spilling beer gets you whipped, what's the punishment for spilling secrets? You don't want to find out. Night falls, and you're cleaning the dining hall, scrubbing wine stains from the floor. A guard lingers, watching you too closely. Did he see you pause near those nobles? You scrub harder, the rags sopping, and try to look busy. Back in the servants' quarters, you collapse, the day's fear pooling in your bones. Joke 3. You'd trade this tasteful job for cleaning latrines. At least poop doesn't plot against you. Tomorrow, you're sent to the Nile and new dangers wait. For now, you shut your eyes, the kitchen's distant clatter fading, and hope you wake up breathing. You're jolted awake by a rough shake, the servants' quarters still dark, the air thick with the snores of exhausted maids. Your new task is fetching water from the Nile for the palace's morning rituals, and the thought alone makes your stomach knot. You grab a clay jug, its weight a familiar ache, and join a line of maids trudging toward the riverbank. The pre-dawn sky is a bruise of purple, and the Nile's murmur feels more like a warning than a comfort. You're not just dodging crocodiles out there. Court spies lurk, watching for maids who linger too long or whisper too much. One wrong move, and you're not coming back. The path to the river is muddy, your sandals sinking with each step. Reeds sway, hiding who knows what, and the air smells of damp earth and fish. You reach the bank, where the Nile glints under the first rays of Ra. You kneel, filling your jug, but your eyes dart to the ripples. Crocodiles are no myth here. A mainstream fact anchors you. The Nile was Egypt's lifeblood, especially during the New Kingdom, supplying water, food, and trade, but its banks were deadly, with crocodiles killing dozens yearly. A quirky tidbit adds a shiver. Some maids used crocodile dung as a sunscreen paste, believing it warded off evil spirits. Gross, but you're tempted to try it. Historians still argue whether these remedies were practical or pure superstition driven by fear. You're not alone at the river. Another maid, her face lined with worry, mutters about a noble scene sneaking out last night, maybe meeting a spy. You nod, keeping silent, but her words cling like the mud on your feet. Is she testing you? Reporting her could save you, or mark you as a snitch. You hoist your jug, water sloshing, and start back, but a rustle in the reeds stops you cold. A crocodile? A spy? You freeze, heart pounding, until a heron flaps free. Joke 1. You thought your village's stray dogs were trouble. Try outrunning a Nile croc with a jug on your head. Back at the palace, you deliver the water to the priest's quarters, where they're preparing for a dawn offering. The room's heavy with incense, and a priest snaps at you to hurry. You pour the water into a basin, careful not to spill, but you overhear him whisper to another about a displeased god. Bad omen? You don't know, but you feel the weight of their glances. You're sent to fetch more water, and the trek repeats, your arms screaming. By mid-morning, you're back at the river, and this time, you spot a guard lingering nearby, his eyes on you. Is he watching the bank, or you? You fill your jug faster, pretending not to notice. Afternoon brings a new twist. You're to carry water for the royal bathhouse, but the path takes you past the harem's walls. You hear a muffled argument, something about a missing jewel. You keep moving, but the jug feels heavier, as if it's carrying the court's secrets too. Joke 2. You'd trade this water run for a nap, but naps don't come with a side of espionage. By evening, you're exhausted, your tunic soaked with river water and sweat. You're sent to clean the priest's basins, and a younger maid whispers about a spy caught last week, tossed to the crocodiles. True or not, it's a reminder. The Nile's not just a river, it's a graveyard. You collapse onto your mat, the day's fear settling like dust. Joke 3. If you survive this, you're writing a memoir. How to haul water and not get eaten or executed. Tomorrow, you're assisting priests, and the stakes climb higher. For now, you close your eyes, the Nile's distant roar fading, and pray you stay invisible. The air's still cool as you're herded from the servants' quarters, your eyes gritty from too little sleep. Today, you're assisting priests in the temple wing, a place where the gods feel closer, and so does danger. You clutch a bundle of incense cones, their sharp scent stinging your nose, and follow a senior maid through corridors lit by flickering oil lamps. The walls are carved with scenes of offerings, gods with falcon heads glaring down. You're to help prepare a ritual for Amun-Ra, but one mistake, a dropped tool, a misspoken word, could be seen as blasphemy. And in this court, divine wrath means human punishment. You enter the sanctuary, a dim chamber where priests chant in low, rhythmic tones. The air's thick with myrrh, and a golden statue of Amun-Ra looms, its eyes seeming to follow you. Your job is to arrange offerings, bread, beer, and lotus flowers on a stone altar. Your hands shake as you place each item, the priest's chants making your skin prickle. A mainstream fact grounds you. Rituals in ancient Egypt, especially in the 19th dynasty, were daily affairs, with priests and their assistants ensuring the gods' favor to maintain cosmic balance. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were tasked with burning sacred hair clippings from priests, believed to hold magical power. Talk about a weird side hustle. Historians still argue whether these rituals were purely spiritual or a tool to keep the masses in line. A priest hands you a bronze censer, heavy with glowing coals, and you swing it gently, sending smoke curling upward. You overhear two priests whispering about a failed offering last week, blamed on a maid who defiled the altar. She's gone now, exiled or worse. You grip the censer tighter, praying you don't trip. Joke 1. You thought your village's harvest prayers were intense. Try not burning the palace down while appeasing a sun god. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh linen for the priest's robes. The weaving room's a maze of looms, and you catch a weaver muttering about a noble bribing a priest for a favorable oracle. You pretend not to hear, but the words burrow deep. Do you report it? Silence feels safer, but safety's a mirage here. Back in the sanctuary, you're tasked with polishing a silver ink, its surface cool but heavy with meaning. A priest watches you, his gaze sharp. Does he suspect you heard something? You polish faster, the rag slipping in your sweaty hands. By afternoon, the ritual's in full swing. You stand at the altar's edge, holding a tray of alabaster vials filled with sacred oil. The pharaoh himself appears, his golden collar glinting, and you drop to your knees, tray wobbling. His presence electrifies the room, but you feel like a mouse under a hawk's shadow. You overhear a priest mention a sign from Amun-Ra about the Hittite envoy. Good or bad, you can't tell, but you're starting to hate how every whisper feels like a trap. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're demanding hazard pay for ritual stress and godly side-eye. Evening brings cleanup, and you're scrubbing the altar's stone surface, the scent of oil lingering. A younger maid whispers about a priest who vanished after a cursed ritual. Gossip maybe, but it chills you. You're learning fast. The gods' favor is fickle, and maids pay the price. Back on your mat, you collapse, the day's tension coiling in your chest. Joke 3. You'd trade this temple gig for fishing in the Nile. At least fish don't smite you for a smudged altar. Tomorrow, you're in the harem, where new dangers wait. For now, you shut your eyes, the priest's chants echoing faintly, and hope the gods aren't watching too closely. You're pulled from your straw mat before the stars fade, the servants' quarters still humming with restless whispers. Today, you're assigned to the harem, a place cloaked in mystery and menace, where the pharaoh's wives and concubines weave their own web of rivalries. You clutch a basket of linen napkins, your steps quick as you follow a stern-faced maid through a maze of corridors. The air grows sweeter, heavy with jasmine, but the guarded doors and sharp-eyed eunuchs tell you this is no sanctuary. You're a maid, but here, you're also a pawn in a silent war, where one wrong move could cost your head. The harem's chambers are a vision of luxury. Silk curtains shimmer, and alabaster lamps cast a soft glow on women draped in gold and kohl. You're tasked with folding linens for a noblewoman's bath, but their chatter, sharp as daggers, makes you shrink. One wife, her voice low, hisses about a rival's gift to the pharaoh, maybe a poisoned shawl. You keep your eyes down, but your heart races. The mainstream fact anchors you. Harems in ancient Egypt, especially under pharaohs like Ramses II, were political hubs, where wives and concubines wielded influence through charm or schemes. A quirky tidbit adds spice. Maids sometimes smuggled love potions for concubines, hoping to sway the pharaoh's favor. Risky side gigs with deadly stakes. Historians still argue whether harem women were powerless or masterminds pulling invisible strings. You move to replenish a tray of dates, but a concubine snaps at you for arranging them sloppily. You apologize, hands trembling, and fix the tray, but her glare lingers. Another woman laughs, mocking her rival's fading beauty, and you realize you're caught in their crossfire. You overhear a whisper about a missing emerald, stolen or hidden to frame someone. Do you report it? Stay silent? Either choice feels like stepping into a trap. Joke 1. You thought your village's squabbles over well water were drama. Try surviving a harem where a crooked date could spark a vendetta. Midday, you're sent to fetch rose water from the perfumers. The errand takes you past a courtyard where a eunuch guard eyes you, his hand on a curved blade. You hurry, the glass vial slippery in your grip. But you catch a snippet of gossip from two maids. A concubine tried to curse another with a scorpion charm. True or not, it's a reminder. This place thrives on betrayal. Back in the harem, you pour the rose water into a basin, the scent dizzying. A senior wife, her eyes like a cat's, asks if you've heard anything interesting. You stammer, claiming ignorance, but her smile says she doesn't believe you. By afternoon, you're sweeping the harem's mosaic floors, the tiles cool under your knees. The women are preparing for a banquet, and the tension's thick. One wrong glance could ignite a feud. You overhear a plan to distract the pharaoh with a new dancer. Is it innocent or a plot? You sweep faster, praying to stay invisible. Joke 2. If you could bottle harem gossip, you'd sell it for a villa. Too bad it comes with a death warrant. Night falls, and you're tasked with lighting oil lamps. The harem's quieter now, but the silence feels like a held breath. A maid whispers about a concubine who vanished last month, supposedly for disloyalty. You shudder, the lamp's flame wavering. Back on your mat, the day's weight presses down. Joke 3. You'd trade this harem job for wrestling crocodiles. At least they don't scheme behind your back. Tomorrow, you're on linen duty, and new perils loom. For now, you close your eyes, the jasmine's ghost lingering, and pray you slip through the harem's claws unnoticed. You're shaken awake in the pre-dawn gloom, the servants' quarters, a tangle of shadows and soft snores. Today, you're on linen duty, crafting and maintaining the pharaoh's sacred wardrobe, where every thread must be flawless. You stumble after a grim-faced maid, clutching a reed basket, toward the weaving rooms. The air smells of flax and oil, and the clack of looms already hums through the palace. These aren't just clothes. You're handling the god king's divine image, and one loose stitch could mean a whip's lash or worse. You rub sleep from your eyes, the harem's venomous whispers still echoing from yesterday, and brace for a new kind of pressure. The weaving room's a hive of activity, with women bent over looms, their fingers dancing across threads. You're tasked with folding pleated linen kilts, each crease sharp enough to cut. The fabric's so fine it slips like water, and you're sweating despite the morning chill. A senior weaver snaps, "No flaws or you're out." You nod, but the stakes feel heavier than the linen. The mainstream fact grounds you. Linen was sacred in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, worn by pharaohs to symbolize purity and divine favor, often woven by skilled servants under intense scrutiny. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some linens were treated with natron, a salt used in mummification, to purify them. Talk about wearing a corpse's glow. Historians still argue whether these rituals were spiritual necessities or propaganda to elevate the pharaoh's mystique. You're handed a needle to repair a hem on a royal shawl. The thread's delicate, and your hands shake as you stitch, praying you don't snag the fabric. Nearby, two weavers whisper about a noble who demanded extra linen for a secret trip. Smuggling, maybe? You keep your head down, but their words stick like lint. Do you report it? Silence feels safer. But you're learning safety's a myth here. Joke 1. You thought your village's sewing circle was picky. Try stitching for a god who smites for sloppy hems. Mid-morning, you're sent to deliver a stack of kilts to the pharaoh's chambers. The corridors are quiet, but a guard's stare makes your skin crawl. You clutch the linens tighter, their weight a shield, and overhear a scribe muttering about a stained robe last week that cost a maid her job, and maybe her life. Back in the weaving room, you're tasked with polishing turquoise beads for a ceremonial collar. Each bead's a tiny fortune, and dropping one would be disaster. A weaver hisses at you to hurry, her voice sharp with her own fear. By afternoon, you're ironing linens with a heated stone, the heat scorching your palms. The room's stifling, and you catch a snippet of gossip. A rival court's envoy mocked the pharaoh's wardrobe, sparking a diplomatic spat. You press harder, the stone hissing, and wonder if your work could start a war. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're opening a laundry business, call it no smite, just starch. Evening brings a final task, inspecting a royal cloak for the Opet festival. You check every seam, heart pounding, knowing a single flaw could brand you careless. A younger maid whispers about a weaver punished for a torn sash, sent to the desert mines. You shudder, folding the cloak with trembling hands. Back on your mat, the day's strain clings like damp linen. Joke 3. You'd trade this needlework for herding goats. At least they don't execute you for a bad pleat. Tomorrow you're cleaning chambers, and new dangers creep closer. For now, you close your eyes, the loom's distant clack fading, and pray your stitches hold strong. You're roused by a sharp whisper, the servants' quarters still wrapped in pre-dawn darkness, the air heavy with the must of straw mats. Today, you're cleaning the palace's private chambers, a task that sounds simple but feels like tiptoeing through a den of scorpions, literal and human. You grab a reed broom and a clay jar of natron paste, following a tight-lipped maid through corridors where torchlight dances on polished stone. The scent of myrrh lingers, but so does the prickling sense of being watched. Every corner hides a venomous pest, or a courtier's trap, and as a maid, you're expected to scrub away both without leaving a trace, or becoming one. The first chamber belongs to a high-ranking noble, its walls painted with scenes of victorious battles. You sweep the floor, the broom's bristles hissing against the tiles, but your eyes dart to the shadows. Scorpions are no myth here. They skitter from under furniture, their stings a quick ticket to agony, or worse, if you're blamed for letting one near a noble. You spot one, its tail curled, and crush it with your sandal, heart pounding. The mainstream fact anchors you. Ancient Egyptian palaces, especially in the 18th dynasty, were plagued by scorpions, with servants tasked to keep them at bay using natron and magic charms. A quirky tidbit adds a shiver. Some maids wore amulets shaped like scorpions, believing they'd repel the real ones. Talk about fighting creepy with creepy. Historians still argue whether these charms were faith-driven or a desperate placebo for terrified workers. You move to polishing a cedar chest, its surface gleaming but dusty. As you work, you overhear two guards outside the door, their voices low. "The vizier's hiding something," one mutters. "Gold, maybe, for the Hittites." You freeze, rag in hand. Gold again? You've heard whispers like this before, and they're starting to form a dangerous puzzle. Do you tell someone? The wrong choice could land you in a scorpion pit, figuratively or not. Joke 1. You thought your village's rats were bad. Try sweeping a palace where the pests sting and the gossip bites. Mid-morning, you're sent to clean a priestess's chamber, its air thick with incense. You scrub a limestone basin, but a clay tablet on a table catches your eye, etched with odd symbols. Not your business, but you wonder, is it a spell, a code, or a trap left to test you? You keep scrubbing, but the tablet's presence burns. A senior maid hisses, "Don't touch anything." And you nod, but you're starting to hate how every room feels like a snare. By noon, you're in a lesser noble's room, dusting alabaster lamps. You find a hidden dagger under a cushion. Accidentally, of course. Your stomach twists. Report it, and you're a hero. Or a target. Afternoon brings a new terror. Cleaning the pharaoh's own antechamber. You polish a golden hawk statue, its eyes seeming to judge you. A scribe passes, muttering about a cursed maid who left a smudge last week and vanished. You wipe harder, the rag sopping, and pray you're invisible. Joke 2. If you could bottle maid paranoia, you'd sell it to every servant in Thebes, call it Eau de Doom. Evening falls, and you're scrubbing tiles in a corridor when a noble storms past, cursing a traitor in the court. You keep your head down, but his words echo that gold rumor. Back on your mat, the day's dread settles like dust. Joke 3. You'd trade this cleaning gig for wrestling Nile hippos. At least they don't plant daggers to frame you. Tomorrow, you're in the bathhouse, where new perils steam. For now, you close your eyes. The palace's hum, a restless drone, and hope no scorpions, or spies, find you in the dark. You're dragged from sleep by a harsh whisper. The servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn chill. Your body aches from yesterday's scrubbing, but there's no rest. Today, you're assigned to the royal bathhouse, a steamy maze of limestone and lotus-scented water where maids balance scalding pots and court gossip with equal care. You grab a stack of linen towels, following a sharp-eyed maid through corridors where the air grows damp and warm. The bathhouse is a place of luxury, but for you, it's a cauldron of danger. One spilled drop or overheard secret could boil you alive. You clutch the towels tighter, the memory of that hidden dagger still prickling your nerves. The bathhouse hums with activity, its walls slick with condensation, mosaics of Nile scenes glinting under torchlight. You're tasked with preparing a bath for a noblewoman, hauling buckets of heated water from a copper cauldron. The steam burns your palms, and you wince, but a senior maid snaps, "Faster or you'll feel real heat." You pour the water into a stone basin, careful not to splash, but the noblewoman's voice cuts through the haze, complaining about a rival's stolen perfume. You keep your eyes down, but her words linger. Another piece of the court's jagged puzzle. The mainstream fact steadies you. Bathhouses in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were elite sanctuaries with servants like you ensuring perfect temperatures and cleanliness under brutal pressure. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids mixed crocodile fat into bath oils, believing it pleased the gods. Gross, but you're starting to see why they clung to any edge. Historians still argue whether these rituals were hygienic or purely symbolic displays of power. You're sent to fetch more water, dodging other maids who weave through the steam like ghosts. As you fill your bucket, you overhear two attendants whispering about a gift for the pharaoh's bath. A vial of something special. Poison? A love charm? You don't know, but the word gift echoes those poisoned dates you heard about. Your heart races. Do you report it? Silence feels like your only shield, but it's wearing thin. Joke 1. You thought your village's bucket brigade was tough. Try hauling water while dodging court conspiracies. Midday, you're scrubbing the basin's rim. The stones slick under your fingers. A nobleman enters, barking for cooler water, and you scramble to adjust the mix, praying you get it right. His companion mutters about a disloyal maid caught eavesdropping last week, whipped and gone. You scrub harder, the rag sopping, and wonder if they're watching you. By afternoon, you're folding towels for the pharaoh's own bath, a task that makes your stomach lurch. His bath is a ritual, every step sacred, and you're one slip from defiling it. You overhear a priest mention a sign in the water's ripples. Bad news for the Hittite talks. You fold faster, pretending not to hear, but you're drowning in secrets. Evening brings a final task. Cleaning the bathhouse drains, a grimy job that leaves your hands raw. The steam's gone, but the air's still heavy, and a guard lingers, his eyes tracking you. Did he hear you pause near that priest? You scrub the drain, the sludge cold and foul, and try to look busy. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're writing a bathhouse survival guide, Chapter 1. Don't trust the bubbles. Chapter 1. Don't. Back on your mat? The day's heat and fear cling to you like damp linen. A younger maid whispers about a bathhouse attendant who vanished after mishandling a noble's towel. You pull your blanket tight, the straw poking your back. Joke 3. You'd trade this steamy job for herding geese. At least they don't plot your doom over a lukewarm bath. Tomorrow, you're at the Opet Festival, where chaos waits. For now, you close your eyes. The bathhouse is drip fading, and pray you stay as invisible as the steam. You're yanked from a restless sleep, the servants' quarters still dark, the air thick with the rustle of straw and whispered fears. Today's the Festival of Opet, a grand celebration honoring Amun-Ra, and you're assigned to manage the palace's preparations, a whirlwind of crowds, chaos, and courtly eyes. You grab a basket of palm fronds for decorations, following a harried maid through corridors, buzzing with anticipation. The festival's a spectacle. Music, processions, and divine statues carried through Thebes. But for you, it's a gauntlet. One misstep, whether tripping in the crowd or crossing a noble, could mean trampling or disgrace. You weave through servants hauling wine amphorae, the scent of lotus and sweat already heavy, and brace for a day where survival feels like a long shot. Outside, the palace courtyard thrums with preparations. You're tasked with arranging fronds along the processional route, the sun already searing your neck. Throngs of priests, nobles, and commoners jostle nearby, their shouts mingling with drumbeats. You work fast, but the crowd's press makes your heart pound. Lose your footing, and you're crushed under sandals. The mainstream fact anchors you. The Opet Festival, peaking in the New Kingdom, was a massive public ritual linking the pharaoh's divine power to Amun-Ra through lavish processions, with servants like you keeping the chaos in check. A quirky tidbit adds color. Maids sometimes tossed barley into crowds as blessings, but it often sparked scuffles. Talk about good intentions gone wild. Historians still argue whether Opet was a spiritual unifier or a political show to dazzle the masses. You're sent to carry a tray of bread offerings to a temporary shrine, weaving through a sea of elbows and egos. A noble snaps at you for blocking his view, and you mumble an apology, nearly dropping the tray. Nearby, two priests whisper about a sign during last year's festival, a falcon's flight that predicted victory. Or was it defeat? You catch the word Hittites again, and your stomach twists. Those rumors are piling up. Do you report them? You keep moving, but the shrine's crowded, and a child grabs a loaf from your tray, giggling. You freeze, expecting a guard's wrath, but he just laughs. Joke 1. You thought your village's harvest dance was wild. Try serving bread in a mob that treats you like a piñata. Midday, you're reassigned to fan a noblewoman under a canopy, the palm frond heavy in your aching arms. Her complaints about the heat drown out the music, but you overhear her companion mutter about a rival planning to upstage the pharaoh's entrance. Sabotage? You fan faster, sweat stinging your eyes, and pray you're invisible. By afternoon, you're hauling water jugs for priests, the crowd's roar deafening. A drunk reveler stumbles into you, spilling half a jug, and you brace for punishment, but a kind-eyed maid helps you refill it. Her smile's a rare mercy in this storm. Evening brings the procession's climax. The pharaoh's bark, gleaming with gold, sails through the crowd. You're tasked with scattering petals, but the crush is suffocating, and a misplaced step could land you under a chariot. You overhear a guard mutter about a thief caught in the chaos. Another maid, maybe. Your petals scatter, and you slip away, heart racing. Joke 2. If you survive this festival, you're retiring to a cave. Crowds and conspiracies are not your vibe. Night falls, and you're cleaning up wilted fronds, the courtyard littered with festival debris. A scribe lingers, muttering about a disrupted ritual. You keep your head down, the broom your only shield. Back on your mat, the day's chaos clings like dust. Joke 3. You'd trade this festival gig for wrestling a hippo. At least it's one-on-one. Tomorrow, you're grinding grain, where new dangers spark. For now, you close your eyes, the crowd's echo fading, and pray you fade into the shadows too. You're stirred from a shallow sleep by a rough nudge, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn hush, the air thick with the scent of straw and yesterday's sweat. Today, you're grinding grain in the palace's bakery, a dusty, back-breaking task that seems simple but hides a fiery danger. You grab a coarse apron and follow a grim-faced maid through dim corridors to the grinding room, where the rhythmic scrape of stone already hums. The air's heavy with flour dust, and every breath feels like inhaling a desert. One stray spark here could turn the room into an inferno. And as a maid, you're not just milling flour, you're dancing with disaster. The grinding room's a haze of dust, with women hunched over querns, their hands red from hours of work. You're handed a stone grinder, its weight sinking into your palms, and told to mill barley for the pharaoh's bread. The dust coats your throat, and you cough, earning a glare from a senior baker. "Keep it steady," she snaps, "or you'll ruin the batch." You grind, muscles burning, but your eyes dart to the oil lamps flickering nearby, too close for comfort. The mainstream fact grounds you. Ancient Egyptian bakeries, especially in the New Kingdom, were vital but hazardous, with grain dust explosions a known risk, killing servants in flashes of flame. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids chewed raw barley to test its quality, spitting it out to avoid curses. Talk about a gritty taste test. Historians still argue whether these explosions were accidents or sabotage to disrupt the palace's food supply. You're halfway through a pile of barley when you overhear two bakers whispering about a shortage in the grain stores. Stolen, they think, by a noble for the black market. Your hands falter, the grinder wobbling. Stolen grain? You've heard whispers of Hittite gold and secret deals. This feels connected. Do you report it? The wrong move could brand you a snitch, or worse, if the thief finds out. Joke 1. You thought your village's bread fights were bad. Try milling flour where one spark could bake you instead. Mid-morning, you're sent to sweep the floor, the dust rising in clouds that sting your eyes. A baker mutters about a maid who caused a fire last year, banished to the desert, or so the story goes. You sweep faster, the broom kicking up more dust, and pray you don't knock over a lamp. By noon, you're back at the quern, grinding wheat now, the air so thick you can barely see. A guard lingers at the door, his eyes on you. Is he watching for sparks or secrets? You keep your rhythm, but your heart's out of sync. Afternoon brings a new task, sifting flour for a festival batch. The sieve's fine mesh strains your wrists, and you overhear a scribe outside complaining about tampered grain deliveries. Tampered how? You don't know, but the word sends a chill. You sift faster, flour dusting your arms like ash, and wonder if you're grinding your own doom. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off bread, too much drama for a loaf. Evening falls, and you're tasked with cleaning the querns, your fingers raw from scraping stone. The room's quieter now, but the dust still hangs, and a younger maid whispers about a fire that wasn't an accident last month. Gossip or truth? You scrub harder, the day's fear settling in your bones. Back on your mat, the bakery's grit clings to your skin. Joke 3. You'd trade this flour-dusted job for fishing. At least the Nile doesn't explode when you sneeze. Tomorrow, you're mixing cosmetics where new poisons wait. For now, you close your eyes, the grindstone's echo fading, and pray you don't spark trouble in your sleep. You're roused by a sharp prod, the servants' quarters still wrapped in the pre-dawn dark. the air thick with the must of straw and restless murmurs. Today, you're mixing cosmetics for the court's elite, a delicate task that smells of luxury but reeks of danger. You grab a clay jar of ochre and follow a tight-lipped maid through torchlit corridors to the perfumer's workshop, where the air hums with the clink of pestles and the scent of myrrh. These aren't just paints. They're the court's mask of divinity, and one wrong mix could poison skin or spark royal fury. You rub sleep from your eyes, the bakery's dust still itching your throat, and brace for a day where beauty is a blade. The workshop's a maze of alabaster jars and bronze mortars, with maids grinding pigments under the watchful eye of a perfumer. You're tasked with blending coal, a black paste of galena and charcoal for the pharaoh's eyes. Your hands tremble as you measure the powder, knowing too much galena could burn his skin, or worse, be seen as sabotage. The air's heavy with frankincense, but it can't mask your fear. The mainstream fact anchors you. Cosmetics in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were both art and ritual, with coal and malachite protecting eyes and signaling divine status. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids mixed lead-based pigments, unaware they were slowly poisoning nobles. Talk about a killer glow-up. Historians still argue whether these toxic recipes were ignorance or subtle assassination tools. You're grinding charcoal when you overhear two perfumers whispering about a noblewoman who demanded special coal, laced with something to weaken a rival. Your pestle falters, powder spilling. Poison again? You've heard too many whispers like this, from dates to bath oils. Do you report it? Silence feels like sinking deeper into the court's web. Joke 1. You thought your village's henna tattoos were fancy. Try mixing makeup where one pinch could paint you dead. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch malachite from the storeroom, dodging shelves of jars labeled in cryptic hieroglyphs. A scribe lingers nearby, muttering about a tainted batch of ochre last month that left a priestess ill. You grab the green stone, its weight cold in your hands, and hurry back, but his words cling. By noon, you're blending lip rouge from red ochre and beeswax, the mixture sticky and warm. A noblewoman sweeps in, inspecting your work with a sneer. Too pale, she snaps, and you rework it, praying she doesn't blame you for her mirror's truth. Afternoon brings a new task, preparing a face cream for the pharaoh's wife, using fat and natron. The recipe's simple, but the fat's rancid edge makes you pause. Is it safe? You mix it anyway, under the perfumer's glare, and overhear her mutter about a rival court using arsenic in their creams. Your stomach twists. You're not just mixing beauty, you're handling death. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're starting a non-lethal lipstick business. Call it Safe Shine. Evening falls, and you're cleaning mortars, your fingers stained with pigment. The workshop's quieter, but a guard's shadow looms at the door. Did he see you hesitate over that cream? You scrub harder, the clay rough against your skin. A younger maid whispers about a perfumer banished for a bad batch that wasn't her fault. Back on your mat, the day's toxins linger in your mind. Joke 3. You'd trade this makeup gig for weaving baskets. At least reeds don't plot your downfall. Tomorrow, you're spying for survival, where the stakes sharpen. For now, you close your eyes, the workshop's scents fading, and pray your hands stay clean of trouble. You're jolted awake by a hushed command, the servants' quarters still shrouded in the pre-dawn chill, the air thick with the rustle of straw and stifled yawns. Today, you're thrust into the court's shadow game, spying for survival, reporting whispers to a senior maid who trades secrets like coin. You grab a reed basket, a flimsy cover for your real task, and follow her through dim corridors where torchlight flickers like a conspirator's glance. The palace hums with unseen eyes, and every word you overhear could save you, or slit your throat. You rub the cosmetic stains from your fingers, the memory of poisoned coal still sharp, and brace for a day where silence is as deadly as speaking. You're sent to the scribe's hall, ostensibly to deliver papyrus, but really to listen. The room's a maze of low tables and inked reeds, with scribes scratching accounts of grain and gold. You linger, adjusting the papyrus stack, and catch two scribes muttering about a missing tribute meant for the Hittites, stolen, they think, by a vizier. Your pulse spikes. That gold again. threading through every whisper you've heard. The mainstream fact grounds you. Espionage was rampant in Egyptian courts, especially in the 19th dynasty, with servants like you coerced into spying to root out disloyalty. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids used coded gestures, like dropping a cloth, to signal overheard plots. Talk about a secret handshake with stakes. Historians still argue whether these spies were loyal to the pharaoh or played both sides for survival. You report the scribe's words to the senior maid, her eyes narrowing as she nods. "Keep listening," she hisses, and you're sent to the noble's dining hall, sweeping crumbs while ears strain. A noble brags about a deal with a foreign trader, his voice low but careless. You sweep closer, heart pounding, but a guard's stare stops you cold. Is he onto you? Do you tell the maid? Betrayal lurks in every choice. Joke 1. You thought your village's gossip mill was juicy. Try spying where one wrong word could mill you into dust. Mid-morning, you're tasked with refilling oil lamps in the council chamber, where viziers debate taxes. You move slowly, wick by wick, and overhear a heated exchange about a traitor in the court, someone leaking plans to a rival kingdom. Your hands shake, spilling a drop of oil. The viziers don't notice, but you feel exposed, a speck in their storm. By noon, you're back with the senior maid, whispering what you heard. She scribbles a note, her face unreadable, and you wonder if you've just saved the pharaoh or doomed yourself. Afternoon brings a new errand, carrying wine to the harem's courtyard. The women's laughter masks sharper words. One mentions a letter hidden in a jewel box meant for a spy. You pour the wine, hands steady but mind racing. Report it, and you might thwart a plot. Stay silent, and you're complicit. You're starting to hate this game, but there's no way out. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're retiring to a mute monastery. Spying's too loud for your nerves. Evening falls, and you're sweeping the scribe's hall again, the air heavy with ink and tension. A lone scribe lingers, muttering about a cursed maid who reported too much and vanished. You grip the broom, the day's secrets piling like sand. Back on your mat, the weight of every whisper presses down. Joke 3. You'd trade this spy gig for cleaning latrines, at least waste doesn't whisper back. Tomorrow, you're running errands during chariot races, where new dangers charge. For now, you close your eyes, the palaces hum a restless pulse, and pray you stay one step ahead of betrayal. You're roused by a sharp hiss, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn dark, the air thick with the scratch of straw and the weight of yesterday's secrets. Today, you're running errands during the palace's chariot races, a spectacle of thundering hooves and noble egos, where maids like you dart through chaos to deliver messages. You grab a sealed papyrus scroll, its wax seal heavy with purpose, and follow a tense maid through corridors buzzing with the distant roar of the crowd. The racecourse is a storm of dust and danger, and one wrong step could leave you trampled, or tangled in the court's deadly plots. You clutch the scroll, the sting of spying still fresh, and brace for a day where speed is your only shield. The racecourse lies beyond the palace, a wide oval of packed earth where chariots gleam with gold and horses snort under jeweled harnesses. You're tasked with delivering the scroll to a vizier in the noble's pavilion, but the path cuts through the crowd's edge, where spectators shove and cheer. Dust chokes the air, and you dodge elbows, your sandals slipping on loose stones. The mainstream fact anchors you. Chariot races in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were elite displays of skill and power, often tied to military prestige, with servants risking life to serve the event's demands. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Maids sometimes carried betting slips for nobles, slipping them to bookmakers in secret. Talk about a side hustle with a side of hooves. Historians still argue whether these races were pure sport or staged to distract from court intrigues. You weave toward the pavilion, the scroll damp in your sweaty grip, when you overhear two guards betting on a noble's chariot. Rigged, one claims, to fail spectacularly. Your heart skips. Sabotage? You've heard whispers of Hittite gold and stolen tributes. This feels like another thread in the web. Do you report it? You hurry on, But a chariot thunders past, its wheels spitting gravel, and you stumble, nearly dropping the scroll. Joke 1. You thought your village's donkey cart was fast. Try outrunning a chariot while dodging a coup. Mid-morning, you're sent with another message, this time to a priest near the racecourse shrine. The crowd's thicker now, and you're jostled, the papyrus nearly torn from your hands. You overhear a noble's attendant muttering about a payoff to a charioteer. More rigging? You deliver the message, the priest's eyes flicking to you like you're part of the plot. By noon, you're running water jugs to the pavilion, your arms aching as nobles bark for more. A vizier's aide whispers about a disgraced maid who tripped during last year's race, whipped and gone. You move faster, praying you don't slip. Afternoon brings a new errand, carrying a fan to a noblewoman in the stands. The races are at their peak, chariots blurring in a haze of dust. You climb the steps, the fan's feathers tickling your chin, and catch a snippet of her conversation, a plan to celebrate a rival's loss. Your stomach twists. You hand her the fan, avoiding her gaze, and retreat. But the crowd's roar feels like it's chasing you. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off running, unless it's to escape this dust-choked death trap. Evening falls, and you're tasked with collecting betting tallies from the bookmakers, your hands shaking as you dodge drunken revelers. A scribe lingers, muttering about a fixed race that cost a noble his fortune. You keep moving, the tallies heavy as secrets. Back on your mat, the day's chaos clings like grit. Joke 3. You'd trade this errand gig for herding cats. At least they don't crash chariots or plot betrayals. Tomorrow you're overhearing tomb secrets, where new dangers lurk. For now, you close your eyes, the racecourse's din fading, and pray you outrun the court's traps. You're shaken awake by a low whisper, the servants' quarters still steeped in pre-dawn shadows, the air heavy with the itch of straw and the echo of chariot wheels from yesterday's chaos. Today, you're assigned to the artisans' quarters, where workers carve secrets into the pharaoh's future tomb, and you're there to clean their tools. A deceptively simple task that pulls you too close to forbidden knowledge. You grab a rag and a jar of natron, following a silent maid through corridors where the air grows cooler, tinged with the scent of stone dust. Knowing too much about the tomb's design could mark you as a threat. And in this court, loose lips sink maids. You clutch the rag, the racecourse's dust still gritty in your memory, and brace for a day where every whisper is a stone waiting to crush you. The artisan's workshop is a cavern of activity, lit by flickering lamps that cast shadows on half-carved reliefs of gods and kings. You're tasked with scrubbing chisels and smoothing stone fragments, the dust coating your hands like a second skin. The artisans, their faces grim, work on plans for the pharaoh's eternal resting place, their sketches hidden under cloths. You glimpse a papyrus corner, tunnels, chambers, and look away fast. The mainstream fact grounds you. Tomb building in ancient Egypt, especially in the Valley of the Kings during the 19th dynasty, was a secretive craft, with workers and servants sworn to silence, often under penalty of death. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were tasked with burning leftover papyrus scraps to erase evidence. Talk about cleaning up a royal cover-up. Historians still argue whether these secrecy measures stopped tomb robbers or fueled court conspiracies. You're wiping a mallet when you overhear two artisans muttering about a flawed chamber design. Too narrow, they say, and a noble's pushing to keep it that way. Sabotage? You've heard whispers of Hittite gold and rigged races. This feels like another dark thread. Your rag slips, and an artisan glares. Do you report the flaw? Silence feels safer, but safety's a ghost here. Joke 1. You thought your village's well digging was secretive. Try cleaning tools for a tomb where one peak could bury you. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch water for the artisans, dodging piles of limestone chips. A scribe lingers nearby, his reed pen scratching notes about security for the tomb. You catch the word traitor. Another maid, maybe, who saw too much. Your jug feels heavier as you hurry back, water sloshing. By noon, you're polishing a granite slab, its surface cold and unyielding. An artisan whispers to another about a hidden chamber for the pharaoh's treasures. Knowledge you wish you hadn't heard. Your hands shake, the rag sopping, and you pray no one saw you listening. Afternoon brings a new task. sweeping the workshop floor, the dust rising in clouds that sting your eyes. The artisans are tense, their voices low as they discuss a rival faction in court, maybe plotting to leak the tomb's location. You sweep faster, heart pounding, and wonder if you're already marked for knowing too much. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off cleaning, unless it's a hut with no secrets carved in stone. Evening falls, and you're tasked with collecting stone shards for disposal, each piece a potential clue to the tomb's design. A guard watches you, his spear glinting, and you move deliberately, avoiding his gaze. A younger maid whispers about an artisan who vanished after talking last month. Back on your mat, the day's weight presses like granite. Joke 3. You'd trade this tomb gig for fishing. At least fish don't curse you for overhearing their blueprints. Tomorrow, you're facing Nile floods, where new perils rise. For now, you close your eyes, the chisels clink fading, and pray your knowledge doesn't bury you. You're tugged from a fitful doze by a hushed call, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn murk, the air thick with the damp scent of straw, and the weight of tomb secrets you wish you could unhear. Today, you're working through the Nile's flood season, a time when the river swells and fevers fester, and you're tasked with hauling supplies through sodden paths to keep the palace running. You grab a reed basket, your sandals already caked from yesterday's dust, and follow a weary maid through corridors where the air feels heavy, tinged with mildew. The floods bring life to Egypt, but for you, they're a slog of disease and exhaustion, with the court's eyes ever watchful. You clutch the basket, the artisan's whisper still carving through your mind, and brace for a day where the river's gifts come with a curse. Outside, the palace grounds are a mess of mud and puddles, the Nile's overflow turning paths to sludge. You're sent to carry sacks of barley from a riverside storehouse, your feet sinking with each step. The air's humid, buzzing with mosquitoes that bite your arms, and you swat them, dreading the fevers they carry. The mainstream fact anchors you. The Nile's annual floods, vital in the New Kingdom for agriculture, also brought malaria and dysentery, with servants like you most at risk, toiling in the wet. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids smeared mud mixed with garlic on their skin to repel bugs. Gross, but you're tempted to slather it on. Historians still argue whether these remedies worked or were desperate folklore born of suffering. You're hauling a sack when you overhear two porters muttering about a spoiled grain shipment, tainted, they think, to weaken the court. Your shoulders ache, but their words hit harder. Tainted grain? You've heard of stolen tributes and flawed tombs. This feels like another plot. Do you report it? You trudge on, mud sucking at your sandals, but a guard's stare makes you falter. Is he watching the sacks or you? Joke 1. You thought your village's rainy days were bad. Try hauling barley while dodging fevers and conspiracies. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch reeds for roofing repairs, wading through ankle-deep water near the riverbank. The reeds are sharp, slicing your palms, and you overhear a scribe complaining about a cursed flood season last year that killed half the laborers. Your basket's heavy, and so is the fear of falling ill. By noon, you're back at the palace, stacking clay jars of oil in a storeroom. The air's stifling, and a maid coughs nearby, her face pale. You edge away, heart racing, and catch her whisper about a noble hoarding medicine, another secret you don't want. Afternoon brings a new task, clearing mud from a courtyard drain, your hands raw as you scoop sludge. The sun's relentless, and you overhear two servants griping about a missing healer, maybe silenced for knowing too much. You shovel faster, sweat mixing with mud, and wonder if you're next to sicken or vanish. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're moving to the desert. Sand's easier than this fever-soaked swamp. Evening falls, and you're tasked with carrying torches to light a priest's ritual by the river. The flames flicker, mosquitoes swarming, and you hear a priest mutter about a bad omen in the flood's rise. You keep your distance, the torch heavy in your grip. Back on your mat, the day's damp and dread cling like wet linen. Joke 3. You'd trade this flood gig for wrestling crocs. At least they don't give you malaria. Tomorrow, you're in the menagerie, where beasts wait to bite. For now, you close your eyes, the Nile's roar a restless hum, and pray you stay above water. You're roused by a sharp nudge, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn dark, the air heavy with the damp reek of straw and the lingering dread of flood-soaked fevers. Today, you're assigned to the royal menagerie, a sprawling enclosure where the pharaoh keeps his exotic beasts, lions, baboons, and worse, as symbols of his divine power. You grab a sack of grain and a bundle of acacia branches, following a grim-faced keeper through corridors where the air grows musky, pierced by distant roars. Feeding these creatures is no mere chore. One slip, and your lunch. You clutch the sack, the Nile's muddy weight still clinging to your thoughts, and brace for a day where survival means outwitting fangs and courtly traps. The menagerie's a maze of stone pens and iron gates, the air thick with the scent of fur and dung. You're tasked with tossing grain to a troop of baboons, their screeches splitting your ears as they lunge for the food. Your hands shake, scattering kernels, and you keep your distance, their sharp teeth glinting. A lion's roar from a nearby pen makes you flinch, and you pray its gate holds. The mainstream fact anchors you. Pharaohs, especially in the New Kingdom, maintained menageries to showcase wealth and dominance, with servants like you risking life to tend them. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were trained to mimic animal calls to calm the beasts. Imagine whistling to a lion like it's a stray dog. Historians still argue whether these menageries were for prestige or to intimidate foreign envoys. You're moving to feed a caged leopard when you overhear two keepers muttering about a tame lion that mauled a maid last month. On purpose, they think, to silence her. Your heart races. Was she a spy like you've been forced to be? You've heard too many whispers. Gold, grain, tombs. And this feels connected. Do you report it? You toss meat to the leopard, its eyes locking on you, and step back fast. Joke 1. You thought your village's goats were trouble. Try feeding a cat that sees you as the main course. Mid-morning, you're sent to scrub water troughs, the stones slick with algae. A keeper barks at you to hurry, but you overhear him whisper to another about a gift for a noble. A baboon, maybe poisoned, to cause chaos. Your rag slips, splashing your tunic. Another plot? You scrub harder, the water cold, and pray no one saw you pause. By noon, you're hauling branches for a giraffe, its long neck swaying like a palm in a storm. A noble passes, inspecting the beasts, and mutters about a display for the Hittite envoy. Your arms ache, but his words sting worse, another thread in the court's web. Afternoon brings a new task, sweeping the menagerie's paths, the dust mixing with animal stench. You overhear a guard gripe about a loose gate last week. Accident or sabotage. You sweep faster, heart pounding, and glance at the lion's pen, its eyes glinting through the bars. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off pets, unless it's a beetle that doesn't plot or pounce. Evening falls, and you're tasked with lighting torches around the menagerie, the flames casting eerie shadows. A keeper lingers, muttering about a maid who fed the wrong beast and vanished. You grip the torch, its heat licking your hand, and move quickly. Back on your mat, the day's roars echo in your chest. Joke 3. You'd trade this zoo gig for cleaning drains. At least sludge doesn't have teeth. Tomorrow, you're with the astrologers, where stars spell new dangers. For now, you close your eyes, the menagerie's growls fading, and pray you're not the next meal. You're pulled from a shallow sleep by a soft hiss, the servants' quarters still draped in the pre-dawn gloom, the air thick with the must of straw, and the faint echo of lion roars from yesterday's menagerie. Today, you're assisting the court astrologers, a shadowy group who read the stars to guide the pharaoh's divine will, and you're tasked with carrying their tools through a maze of cryptic rituals. You grab a basket of bronze instruments, following a tight-lipped maid through corridors where the air feels charged, scented with frankincense. The astrologer's world is one of omens and power plays, and as a maid, one wrong move could brand you a heretic, or worse. You clutch the basket, the baboon's screeches still rattling your nerves, and brace for a day where the stars might spell your doom. The astrologer's chamber is a dim sanctum, its walls painted with constellations, lit by flickering lamps that make the stars seem to pulse. You're tasked with arranging papyrus charts and polishing a bronze astrolabe, its curves heavy with meaning you don't grasp. The astrologers, their faces hooded, murmur over a star map, their voices low but sharp. You catch the word eclipse, a bad omen, they say, for the Hittite talks. The mainstream fact grounds you. Astrology in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, was a sacred science, with priests and astrologers using star patterns to predict floods, wars, and pharaohs' fates. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were taught to spot specific stars, like Sirius, to signal ritual timings. Talk about navigating by cosmic pressure. Historians still argue whether these predictions shaped policy or were manipulated to justify the pharaoh's whims. You're wiping the astrolabe when you overhear two astrologers whispering about a rival priest pushing a false omen to sway the pharaoh. Your cloth slows, the bronze gleaming under your fingers. Another plot? You've heard of tainted grain and rigged races. This feels like a celestial conspiracy. Do you report it? You move to arrange the charts, but an astrologer snaps, "Don't touch those," and you flinch, nearly dropping the basket. Joke 1. You thought your village's moon-gazing was mystic. Try polishing tools for stargazers who could curse you for a smudge. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch incense from the temple stores, dodging shelves of clay tablets etched with star patterns. A scribe lingers, muttering about a lost chart that predicted disaster. Stolen, he thinks, to hide the truth. Your basket feels heavier as you hurry back, the incense's smoke curling in your throat. By noon, you're holding a lamp for an astrologer as he traces constellations, his finger pausing on a troubled star. He mutters about a traitor in court, and you wonder if he means you, your light wavering. You steady it, heart racing, and pray you're invisible. Afternoon brings a new task, cleaning the chamber's floor, the tiles cool but dusty. You overhear an astrologer argue with a priest about a misread omen last month that cost a noble his title. Your broom hesitates, dust rising, and you wonder if you're sweeping up their schemes. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with stars. Give you a cloudy night over this cosmic chess game any day. Evening falls, and you're tasked with carrying the astrolabe to a rooftop observatory, the night air cool but heavy with tension. The astrologers point to a red star, muttering about blood and betrayal. You keep your distance, the bronze cold in your hands. Back on your mat, the day's omens weigh like lead. Joke 3. You'd trade this starry gig for hauling mud. At least mud doesn't predict your execution. Tomorrow, you're brewing beer, where new dangers ferment. For now, you close your eyes, the stars glow fading, and pray you slip through their gaze unnoticed. You're roused by a sharp whisper, the servants' quarters still wrapped in the pre-dawn dark, the air thick with the must of straw, and the faint hum of starlit omens from yesterday's astrologers. Today, you're brewing beer for the palace's feasts, a task that smells of barley and tradition, but bubbles with danger. One bad batch could be your last. You grab a coarse apron, following a gruff maid through corridors where the air grows warm, tinged with yeast and smoke. The brewery's a cauldron of expectations, and in this court, a sour brew isn't just a mistake, it's a death sentence. You tie the apron, the astrologer's cryptic warnings still swirling in your mind, and brace for a day where every sip could spell doom. The brewery's a steamy maze of clay vats and grinding stones, with maids stirring bubbling mixtures under the watchful eye of a brewer. You're tasked with mashing barley, your arms aching as you pound the grain into a sticky paste. The air's heavy, the vats hissing like restless gods, and you're warned to keep the mix perfect. Too sweet, and it's unfit for the pharaoh. Too bitter, and you're blamed for sabotage. The mainstream fact grounds you. Beer was a staple in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, drunk by all classes and offered to gods, with brewers like you under pressure to meet sacred standards. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids added dates to sweeten the brew, but a bad batch was once blamed for a priest's visions. Talk about a divine hangover. Historians still argue whether brewing errors were accidents or veiled attempts to disrupt court rituals. You're stirring a vat when you overhear two brewers muttering about a tainted batch last week. Spiked, they think, to sicken a noble. Your paddle slows, the mash thick and warm. Tainted? You've heard of poisoned coal and rigged races. This feels like another plot bubbling up. Do you report it? You stir faster, but a brewer snaps, "Don't slack." And you nod, sweat stinging your eyes. Joke 1. You thought your village's homebrew was rough. Try brewing for a god king who smites for flat beer. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch honey from the storeroom, dodging shelves of clay jars sealed with wax. A scribe lingers nearby, muttering about a missing shipment of barley, stolen, he claims, to weaken the feast. Your jar feels heavier as you hurry back, the honey's weight sticky with secrets. By noon, you're straining the mash through reed sieves, your hands raw. A noble passes, inspecting the vats, and mutters about a rival who'll choke on tonight's brew. You strain harder, the liquid splashing, and wonder if you're fermenting your own fate. Afternoon brings a new task. Sealing amphorae for the feast, the clay cool but slippery. You overhear a maid whisper about a brewer banished for a cursed batch that soured a festival. Gossip maybe, but it chills you. Your fingers fumble, wax dripping, and you pray your brew passes muster. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're sticking to water. Beer's too brewed with betrayal for your taste. Evening falls, and you're tasked with carrying amphorae to the banquet hall, the weight straining your shoulders. The hall's alive with music, but a guard's stare makes you falter. Did he hear you pause near that noble? You set the jars down, heart pounding, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's yeast and fear cling like damp grain. Joke 3. You'd trade this brewing gig for scrubbing floors. At least tiles don't plot your downfall over a bad pint. Tomorrow, you're facing sandstorms, where chaos whips up new dangers. For now, you close your eyes, the brewery's hum fading, and pray your brew doesn't sour your luck. You're startled awake by a low hiss, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn dark, the air thick with the must of straw and the faint tang of yesterday's brewing vats. Today, a sandstorm's brewing outside, and you're tasked with securing the palace against its wrath, racing to shutter windows and seal doors before the desert's fury swallows everything. You grab a stack of linen strips, following a frantic maid through corridors where the air already hums with the storm's distant growl. This isn't just about battening down. It's about surviving chaos while the court's eyes track your every move. You clutch the linens, the brewery's sticky secret still clinging to your thoughts, and brace for a day where the wind carries more than sand. Outside, the sky's a bruised yellow, the air gritty before the storm even hits. You're sent to tie down palm fronds over courtyard supplies, your hands fumbling as the wind tugs at your tunic. Sand stings your face, and you squint, dodging servants hauling amphorae to safety. The palace feels like a ship in a gale, and you're a deckhand with no map. The mainstream fact anchors you. Sandstorms in ancient Egypt, especially during the New Kingdom's dry seasons, could halt life for days, with servants like you risking injury to protect royal assets. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids burned sage during storms, believing it appeased the storm god Seth. Talk about a smoky prayer for calm. Historians still argue whether these rituals were faith or a desperate bid to feel in control. You're nodding a frond when you overhear two guards shouting over the wind about a lost shipment of grain, blown away or stolen under cover of the storm. Your fingers slip, the rope burning your palms. Stolen grain again? You've heard whispers of tainted brews and Hittite gold. This feels like another gust in the court's conspiracy. Do you report it? You tie faster, but a gust nearly knocks you over, and a guard glares. Watching the storm, or you? Joke 1. You thought your village's dust devils were bad. Try tying knots in a sandstorm while dodging a royal plot. Mid-morning, you're sent to shutter the harem's windows, the wooden slats rattling like bones. The women inside whisper about a cursed storm, blaming a rival's sorcery. Your hands shake as you secure the shutters, their words sinking in. Another secret you don't want. By noon, you're hauling clay jars to a storeroom, the wind howling through cracks. A scribe scurries past, muttering about a hidden message lost in the chaos. Meant for a spy, maybe. You stack the jars, heart racing, and pray the storm buries that knowledge with you. Afternoon brings a new task. Sealing doorways with mud and linen, your fingers raw as you smear the mix. The storm's full force hits, sand pelting the walls like 1,000 tiny fists. You overhear a maid whisper about a guard who vanished in a storm last year, swept away or silenced. You press the linen tighter, sand in your eyes, and wonder if you're sealing your own fate. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're moving to a rainforest. Sand's too sneaky for your nerves. Evening falls, the storm still raging, and you're tasked with lighting oil lamps in a sheltered hall, the flames flickering wildly. A priest lingers, muttering about a sign in the storm's path. Bad news for the pharaoh. You keep your distance, the lamp heavy in your grip. Back on your mat, the day's grit and dread coat you like a second skin. Joke 3. You'd trade this storm gig for wrestling wins. At least they don't whisper treason. Tomorrow, you're tallying taxes, where numbers cut deeper than sand. For now, you close your eyes, the storm's howl fading, and pray you're not blown into trouble. You're roused by a sharp whisper, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn hush, the air heavy with the must of straw and the lingering grit of yesterday's sandstorm. Today, you're tallying grain for the palace's tax season. A meticulous task that feels like juggling knives. One wrong number could spark the pharaoh's fury. You grab a reed stylus and a stack of papyrus, following a tense maid through corridors where the air smells of ink and anxiety. The court's coffers depend on your counts, and so does your survival. You clutch the stylus, the storm's howling secrets still swirling in your mind, and brace for a day where errors are as deadly as conspiracies. The tally room's a cramped chamber, its walls lined with clay tablets and flickering oil lamps. You're tasked with recording sacks of barley from a delta village, your stylus scratching numbers as a scribe looms over you. The air's thick with dust from the grain piles, and every mark you make feels like a judgment. One miscalculation, and you're accused of theft, or worse, sabotage. The mainstream fact anchors you. Tax collection in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, was a high-stakes system, with grain tallies funding armies and temples, and servants like you caught in the crossfire of audits. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids marked tallies with secret symbols to warn of corrupt scribes. Talk about coding your way out of a whip's lash. Historians still argue whether these errors were honest mistakes or subtle rebellions against the court's greed. You're counting sacks when you overhear two scribes muttering about a shortfall in last month's taxes, diverted, they think, to a noble's private stash. Your stylus hesitates, ink smudging. Diverted grain? You've heard whispers of stolen tributes and tainted brews. This feels like another knot in the court's web. Do you report it? You keep writing, but a scribe's glance makes your heart skip. Did he see your pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's market haggling was intense. Try tallying grain where one miscount could tally your doom. Mid-morning, you're sent to cross-check a tablet against a storeroom's stock, dodging piles of barley that threaten to topple. A guard lingers, muttering about a disloyal maid who fudged numbers last year, banished to the quarries. Your papyrus feels heavier as you hurry back, numbers blurring in your tired eyes. By noon, you're recalculating a noble's tribute, the scribe barking corrections. You overhear him whisper to another about a bribe to inflate a rival's taxes, another plot. You adjust the figures, hands shaking, and pray you're invisible. Afternoon brings a new task, sealing tallies with wax, your fingers sticky as you press the pharaoh's cartouche. The room's stifling, and you catch a maid's whisper about a scribe caught adjusting records for a foreign envoy. Hittites again? You seal faster, wax dripping, and wonder if you're stamping your own fate. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off math. Numbers shouldn't come with a side of treason. Evening falls, and you're tasked with filing tablets in a dusty archive, the air heavy with the weight of Egypt's wealth. A scribe lingers, muttering about a cursed tally that sparked a noble's downfall. You stack the tablets, heart pounding, and pray your counts hold up. Back on your mat, the day's figures haunt you like ghosts. Joke 3. You'd trade this tally gig for hauling mud. At least mud doesn't accuse you of stealing empires. Tomorrow, you're serving envoys, where diplomacy cuts deeper than numbers. For now, you close your eyes, the stylus' scratch fading, and pray your sums don't add up to trouble. You're stirred from a restless doze by a low murmur. The servants' quarters still steeped in the pre-dawn dark, the air thick with the must of straw and the sharp edge of yesterday's tax tallies. Today, you're serving foreign envoys in the palace's diplomatic wing, a glittering stage where smiles hide daggers, and every gesture is a move in a deadly game. You grab a tray of bronze goblets, following a stern-faced maid through corridors, where the air hums with the scent of myrrh and the weight of foreign tongues. As a maid, you're pouring wine but also navigating schemes that could topple kingdoms. You clutch the tray, the grain counts still scratching at your mind, and brace for a day where diplomacy is as dangerous as a Nile current. The reception hall's a vision of grandeur, its walls painted with scenes of pharaohs crushing foes, lit by golden braziers. You're tasked with serving wine to a Hittite envoy, his beard braided with beads, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk's. You pour carefully, the goblet's heavy, but your ears catch his low murmur to a noble, something about a tribute delayed, maybe on purpose. The mainstream fact anchors you. Diplomacy in ancient Egypt, especially in the 19th dynasty, was a high-stakes dance, with envoys negotiating peace or war, and servants like you overhearing plans that could shift empires. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were trained to spill drinks accidentally to interrupt sensitive talks. Talk about a splashy way to play spy. Historians still argue whether these diplomatic talks were genuine or theaters for posturing and betrayal. You move to another envoy, a Nubian with gold armbands, when you overhear a scribe whisper about a letter hidden in a gift, meant for a traitor maybe. Your tray wobbles, wine sloshing, hidden letters? You've heard of stolen grain and tainted brews? This feels like another thread in the court's tapestry of plots. Do you report it? You steady the tray, but a guard's glance makes your heart lurch. Did he see you linger? Joke 1. You thought your village's trade fairs were tense. Try pouring wine where one spill could spark a war. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh figs from the kitchens, dodging servants laden with trays. A cook mutters about a poisoned dish served to an envoy last year. Accident or assassination? Your basket feels heavier as you hurry back, the fig's sweetness masking your dread. By noon, you're refilling goblets, the hall now thick with laughter and lies. You overhear a noble hint at a deal to sabotage the Hittite treaty. Gold, again. You pour faster, sweat beading, and pray you're just a shadow in their schemes. Afternoon brings a new task. Arranging cushions for a private meeting between the pharaoh and the envoys. The air's tense, and you catch a vizier's whisper about a spy among the guests. Maybe a maid. Your hands shake as you fluff the cushions, their silk slippery. You're starting to feel like every secret points to you. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with diplomacy. Give you a quiet farm over this snake pit of smiles. Evening falls, and you're tasked with clearing empty trays. The hall quieter, but no less dangerous. A Hittite envoy lingers, muttering about a betrayal in the talks. You stack the goblets, heart pounding, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's whispers coil like smoke. Joke 3. You'd trade this envoy gig for cleaning stables. At least horses don't plot treason over wine. Tomorrow, you're preparing temple offerings, where purity is life or death. For now, you close your eyes, the hall's chatter fading, and pray you slip through the envoy's intrigues unnoticed. You're roused by a hushed prod, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn chill, the air thick with the must of straw, and the lingering buzz of yesterday's diplomatic schemes. Today, you're preparing offerings for the temple of Amun, a sacred task where every lotus petal and bread loaf must be pure. Or you risk execution for defiling the god's table. You grab a basket of barley loaves, following a grim-faced maid through corridors where the air grows heavy with incense and expectation. The temple's a sanctuary of divine order, but for you, it's a tightrope over a pit of divine wrath. You clutch the basket, the envoy's whispered betrayals still curling in your mind, and brace for a day where impurity is a death sentence. The temple's inner sanctum is a hushed world of limestone and gold, its walls carved with gods who seem to watch your every move. You're tasked with arranging offerings on a stone altar, loaves, wine, and lotus flowers. each placed with trembling precision. The air's thick with myrrh, and priests chant in low tones, their eyes sharp as falcons. One wrong move, a crumb out of place, a wilted petal, could be seen as a curse on the pharaoh's reign. The mainstream fact anchors you. Temple offerings in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were daily rituals to appease gods like Amun, with servants like you ensuring perfection under threat of severe punishment. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids sprinkled natron on offerings to purify them, but a bad batch once sparked a priest's allergic fit. Talk about sneezing your way to exile. Historians still argue whether these rituals were purely devotional or a way to control the court through fear of divine displeasure. You're placing a loaf when you overhear two priests whispering about a tainted offering last month. Wine, they think, spiked to discredit a rival priest. Your fingers falter, the bread's crust rough against your skin. Tainted again? You've heard of poisoned brews and hidden letters. This feels like another ripple in the court's dark current. Do you report it? You adjust the lotus flowers, but a priest's glance makes your heart skip. Did he see you pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's harvest offerings were serious. Try arranging loaves where one crumb could summon Anubis. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh wine from the temple stores, dodging shelves of sealed amphorae. A scribe lingers, muttering about a cursed lotus batch that halted a ritual. Sabotage, he claims. Your basket feels heavier as you hurry back, the wine's weight sloshing with secrets. By noon, you're polishing a bronze censer, its coals glowing as you swing it to spread smoke. You overhear a priest mention a sign in the offerings, a bad omen for the Hittite treaty. You swing faster, the smoke stinging your eyes, and pray you're invisible. Afternoon brings a new task. Arranging incense cones for a sunset ritual, your hands sticky with resin. The sanctum's quieter, but you catch a maid's whisper about a priest executed for impure offerings, framed, she thinks, by a rival. You stack the cones, heart pounding, and wonder if you're next to be blamed. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with temples. Give you a muddy field over this incense-soaked inquisition. Evening falls, and you're tasked with sweeping the altar's base, the stone cool but heavy with the day's offerings. A priest lingers, muttering about a traitor among the servants, maybe you, for hearing too much. You sweep faster, dust rising, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's sanctity and suspicion cling like smoke. Joke 3. You'd trade this offering gig for hauling reeds. At least plants don't smite you for a bad bouquet. Tomorrow, you're tending royal children, where tantrums cut deeper than knives. For now, you close your eyes, the chant's echo fading, and pray you pass the god's inspection. You're tugged from a shallow doze by a soft hiss, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn dark, the air heavy with the must of straw, and the lingering weight of yesterday's sacred offerings. Today, you're tending the pharaoh's children in the royal nursery, a place of laughter and luxury where a prince's tantrum could cost you your neck. You grab a basket of linen toys, following a tight-lipped maid through corridors where the air smells of milk and jasmine. These aren't just children. They're divine heirs, and your every move is watched by nurses and nobles alike. You clutch the basket, the temple's incense still curling in your mind, and brace for a day where a spilled cup is as deadly as a spilled secret. The nursery's a bright chamber, its walls painted with scenes of Nile birds, soft mats cushioning the floor. You're tasked with entertaining a young prince, his kohl-rimmed eyes glinting with mischief as he grabs a toy ibis from your basket. You smile, but your heart races. Keep him happy, or you're blamed for his cries. A nurse hovers, her gaze sharp, ready to report any slip. The mainstream fact anchors you. Royal children in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were raised as demigods, with servants like you ensuring their comfort under intense scrutiny, as their moods could sway court favor. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids sang lullabies laced with spells to protect princes from evil spirits. Talk about crooning your way out of a curse. Historians still argue whether these children were truly cherished or pawns in political marriages. You're tossing a linen ball when you overhear two nurses whispering about a rival noble pushing to tutor the prince, maybe to poison his mind. Your throw falters, the ball rolling away. Poisoned minds? You've heard of tainted wine and stolen gold? This feels like another scheme. Do you report it? The prince giggles, demanding another toss, but the nurse's glance makes your skin prickle. Did she see you pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's kids were wild. Try babysitting a godling who could smite you for a bad bounce. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch honeyed milk from the kitchens, dodging servants with trays of dates. A cook mutters about a missing nurse last month, sent away, she thinks, for scolding a princess too harshly. Your jug feels heavier as you hurry back, the milk's sweetness masking your dread. By noon, you're wiping the prince's face after a meal, his sticky fingers grabbing your tunic. You overhear a noble visiting the nursery mention a gift for the children. Dolls, maybe laced with something. You dab faster, heart racing, and pray you're just a shadow in their plans. Afternoon brings a new task, rocking a younger princess to sleep, her cradle carved with lotus flowers. The room's quiet, but you catch a maid's whisper about a prince's fever last week. Natural or induced? You rock gently, the cradles creak loud in your ears, and wonder if you're cradling danger. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with kids. Give you a crocodile's nest over these royal tantrums? Evening falls, and you're tasked with folding the children's linens. The fabric soft but heavy with responsibility. A nurse lingers, muttering about a disloyal maid who upset the prince and vanished. You fold faster, hands trembling, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's cries and conspiracies cling like damp cloth. Joke 3. You'd trade this nursery gig for hauling grain. At least sacks don't scream or scheme. Tomorrow, you're copying scrolls, where ink stains could be your last. For now, you close your eyes, the lullaby's echo fading, and pray you soothe the court's wrath unnoticed. You're roused by a faint whisper, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn chill, the air thick with the must of straw and the lingering echo of royal children's laughter from yesterday's nursery. Today, you're copying scrolls in the scribe's hall, a meticulous task where a single smudged hieroglyph could brand you careless, or worse, a saboteur. You grab a reed pen and a stack of papyrus, following a stern-faced maid through corridors where the air smells of ink and dust. The hall's a sanctuary of knowledge, but for you, it's a minefield of precision and suspicion. You clutch the pen, the prince's sticky fingers still haunting your thoughts, and brace for a day where ink could be as deadly as a blade. The scribe's hall is a maze of low tables and flickering oil lamps, its walls lined with shelves of rolled papyrus. You're tasked with transcribing a record of grain tributes, your pen scratching carefully to mimic the scribe's sharp glyphs. The air's heavy with the weight of Egypt's bureaucracy, and one wrong stroke could ruin the scroll, or your life. A scribe looms nearby, his eyes like a vulture's, ready to pounce on errors. The mainstream fact anchors you. Scribes in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were elite record keepers, with servants like you assisting under brutal pressure to maintain flawless archives. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were taught to grind ink from charred bones, believed to bind the words to truth. Talk about writing with a side of spooky. Historians still argue whether these records were accurate or doctored to flatter the pharaoh's reign. You're mid-glyph when you overhear two scribes whispering about a forged scroll last month, altered, they think, to hide a noble's theft. Your pen hesitates, ink pooling. Forged? You've heard of stolen grain and poisoned gifts? This feels like another thread in the court's dark loom. Do you report it? You keep writing, but the scribe's glance makes your heart lurch. Did he see your pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's tallies were picky. Try writing where one smudge could scribble you out of existence. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh papyrus from the storeroom, dodging shelves of clay tablets. A scribe lingers, muttering about a missing scroll that detailed Hittite tributes, stolen, he claims, to cover a traitor's tracks. Your stack feels heavier as you hurry back, the papyrus's edges sharp against your fingers. By noon, you're grinding ink, the charcoal dust stinging your eyes. You overhear a scribe mention a cursed record that sparked a vizier's downfall, tampered with maybe. You grind faster, heart racing, and pray your ink stays pure. Afternoon brings a new task. Sealing finished scrolls with wax. Your fingers sticky as you press the pharaoh's seal. The hall's quieter, but you catch a maid's whisper about a scribe whipped for a miswritten glyph, framed she thinks by a rival. You seal faster, wax dripping, and wonder if you're next to be erased. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with writing. Give you a reed basket over this inky inquisition. Evening falls, and you're tasked with filing scrolls in a dusty archive, the air thick with the weight of Egypt's secrets. A scribe lingers, muttering about a traitor among the maids, someone who saw too much. You stack the scrolls, hands trembling, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's glyphs and suspicions cling like ink stains. Joke 3. You'd trade this scribe gig for hauling water. At least the Nile doesn't punish you for a sloppy splash. Tomorrow, you're with musicians, where off-key notes could be your last. For now, you close your eyes, the pen's scratch fading, and pray your words don't write your doom. You're roused by a soft nudge, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn gloom, the air thick with the must of straw and the faint scratch of yesterday's ink-stained scrolls. Today, you're assisting court musicians in the banquet hall, a world of lyres and flutes where a single off-key note could pin you with blame for ruining the pharaoh's mood. You grab a basket of reed pipes, following a tense maid through corridors where the air hums with the distant pluck of strings and the scent of lotus perfume. The musician's art is divine, but for you, it's a stage where mistakes echo louder than drums. You clutch the basket, the scribe's forged secrets still smudging your thoughts, and brace for a day where harmony hides discord. The banquet hall's a vision of splendor, its walls painted with scenes of feasts, lit by golden braziers that cast a warm glow. You're tasked with tuning a harp, your fingers trembling as you tighten its strings, each pluck a test of your nerve. The musicians, draped in fine linen, practice for tonight's performance, their notes sharp and demanding perfection. One sour chord, and you're the scapegoat for their failure. The mainstream fact anchors you. Music in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, was a sacred offering, with court musicians elevating rituals and feasts, and servants like you ensuring their tools were flawless. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were taught to hum specific tones to calibrate instruments. Talk about singing for your supper or your survival. Historians still argue whether these performances were purely artistic or propaganda to glorify the pharaoh's reign. You're adjusting a string when you overhear two musicians whispering about a rival troupe bribed to falter tonight, maybe to embarrass a noble. Your fingers slip, the string twanging off-key. Bribed? You've heard of forged scrolls and poisoned wine. This feels like another note in the court's sinister score. Do you report it? You retune quickly, but a musician's glare makes your heart skip. Did she see you pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's flute players were fussy. Try tuning for a god king who smites for a flat note. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh reeds from the storeroom, dodging shelves of clay tablets etched with song lyrics. A scribe lingers, muttering about a lost hymn that angered a priest. Sabotaged, he thinks, to disrupt a ritual. Your basket feels heavier as you hurry back, the reeds sharp against your palms. By noon, you're polishing a sistrum, its metal rings jingling as you wipe it clean. You overhear a musician complain about a cursed performance last week that cost a noble's favor. Tampered with, maybe. You polish faster, heart racing, and pray your work stays in tune. Afternoon brings a new task. Arranging cushions for the musician's performance, the silk slippery under your fingers. The hall's filling with nobles, and you catch a vizier's whisper about a signal in tonight's music, meant for a spy, perhaps. You fluff the cushions, hands shaking, and wonder if you're part of their rhythm. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with music. Give you a silent desert over this orchestrated chaos. Evening falls, and you're tasked with lighting oil lamps around the stage, the flames flickering as the music swells. A musician lingers, muttering about a maid who ruined a lyre and vanished. Framed, she thinks. You grip the lamp, its heat licking your hand, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's melodies and malice cling like a stubborn tune. Joke 3. You'd trade this music gig for hauling grain. At least sacks don't hum treason. Tomorrow, you're serving banquets, where egos outweigh the trays. For now, you close your eyes, the harp's echo fading, and pray you stay out of the court's discordant spotlight. You're roused by a faint hiss. The servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn chill, the air heavy with the must of straw and the lingering hum of yesterday's courtly melodies. Today, you're serving at a noble banquet in the palace's grand hall, a glittering feast where you balance trays of roasted goose and dodge the egos of Egypt's elite. You grab a bronze tray, following a sharp-eyed maid through corridors where the air smells of cumin and ambition. The banquet's a stage for power plays, and as a maid, one spilled drop or overheard plot could tip you into ruin. You clutch the tray, the musician's whispered bribes still ringing in your ears, and brace for a day where the feast is as dangerous as the guests. The hall's a spectacle of opulence, its walls painted with scenes of Nile hunts, lit by alabaster lamps that cast a golden haze. You're tasked with serving wine to nobles, their linen robes gleaming as they laugh and scheme. You pour carefully, the goblet's weight steady in your hands, but your ears catch a noble's low murmur about a rival who'll regret tonight's toast. The mainstream fact anchors you. Banquets in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were political arenas, with servants like you navigating nobles' rivalries while ensuring flawless service. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids were trained to accidentally bump nobles to distract from tense talks. Talk about a calculated stumble. Historians still argue whether these feasts were about unity or a battlefield for court dominance. You're refilling a goblet when you overhear two viziers whispering about a gift of spiced meat. Laced, they hint, to sicken a Hittite envoy. Your hand trembles, wine splashing. Poison again? You've heard of tainted brews and forged scrolls. This feels like another course in the court's deadly menu. Do you report it? You move to the next noble, but a guard's stare makes your heart lurch. Did he see you flinch? Joke 1. You thought your village's feasts were chaotic. Try serving wine where one sip could start a war. Mid-morning, you're sent to fetch fresh dates from the kitchens, dodging servants laden with trays of bread. A cook mutters about a spoiled dish last banquet. Sabotaged, she thinks, to disgrace a noble. Your basket feels heavier as you hurry back, the date's sweetness masking your dread. By noon, you're carrying platters of roasted quail, the hall now thick with chatter and clinking goblets. You overhear a noblewoman hint at a deal to undermine the pharaoh's advisor, gold again. You set the platter down, sweat beading, and pray you're just a shadow in their schemes. Afternoon brings a new task. Clearing empty trays, your arms aching as nobles demand more. The air's heavy with perfume and tension, and you catch a scribe's whisper about a traitor among the servants, someone who heard too much. You stack the trays, hands shaking, and wonder if you're the one they mean. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're done with banquets. Give you a quiet hut over this feast of backstabbing. Evening falls, and you're tasked with refilling oil lamps, the flames flickering as the banquet peaks. A noble lingers, muttering about a signal in the dessert course, meant for a spy perhaps. You grip the lamp, its heat biting your palm, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's flavors and fears cling like spilled wine. Joke 3. You'd trade this serving gig for cleaning stables. At least manure doesn't plot treason over dinner. Tomorrow, you're fighting a palace fire, where flames burn hotter than gossip. For now, you close your eyes, the hall's din fading, and pray you slip through the noble's claws unnoticed. You're jolted awake by a sharp cry, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn dark, the air thick with the must of straw, and the fading clink of banquet goblets from yesterday's feast. Today, a fire's broken out in the palace's storeroom, and you're thrust into the chaos of fighting the blaze, hauling water and linens to save the pharaoh's treasures. You grab a clay bucket, following a panicked maid through corridors, where the air chokes with smoke and the distant crackle of flames. This isn't just about quenching fire. It's about proving your loyalty under the court's scorching scrutiny. You clutch the bucket, the banquet's poisoned whispers still smoldering in your mind, and brace for a day where failure could burn you alive. The storeroom's a hellscape. its walls blackening as flames lick stacks of grain and cedar chests. You're tasked with hauling water from a courtyard well, your arms screaming as you dash through heat that singes your tunic. Smoke stings your eyes, and you cough, dodging servants tossing sand and wet linens at the fire. The blaze is hungry, and so are the nobles watching from a safe distance, their eyes sharp for scapegoats. The mainstream fact anchors you. Fires were a constant threat in ancient Egyptian palaces, especially in the New Kingdom, where oil lamps and dry goods fueled infernos, and servants like you risked life to contain them. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids carried amulets of Sobek, the crocodile god, believing his watery power doused flames. Talk about clutching a charm in a furnace. Historians still argue whether these fires were accidents or arson to cover court crimes. You're splashing water on a burning crate when you overhear two guards shouting over the roar about a spark in the oil jars, set on purpose, they think, to destroy evidence. Your bucket slips, water sloshing. Arson? You've heard of tainted meat and forged scrolls. This feels like another flare in the court's conspiracy. Do you report it? You haul another bucket, but a noble's glare makes your heart lurch. Did he see you pause? Joke 1. You thought your village's cookfires were trouble. Try dousing a blaze where one ember could torch your future. Mid-morning, you're sent to drag soaked linens to smother the flames, the fabric heavy and dripping. A scribe scrambles past, muttering about a lost tablet in the storeroom, records of Hittite gold, maybe burned to ash. Your hands burn from the heat, but his words sear deeper. By noon, you're tossing sand on smoldering grain, the air thick with ash and accusations. You overhear a maid whisper about a servant blamed for a fire last year, whipped and exiled, though she swore it wasn't her fault. You shovel faster, sweat mixing with soot, and pray you're not the next sacrifice. Afternoon brings a new task, clearing charred debris. Your fingers raw as you sift through blackened wood. The fire's under control, but the tension's not. A vizier mutters about a traitor who let the blaze spread. You pile the debris, heart pounding, and wonder if you're already marked. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're swearing off fire. Give you a cold Nile bath over this smoky inquisition. Evening falls, and you're tasked with lighting new lamps in a cleared hall, the irony biting as your hands shake. A guard lingers, muttering about a cursed fire that hid a noble's theft. You grip the lamp, its flame small but fierce, and slip away. Back on your mat, the day's ash and fear coat you like a second skin. Joke 3. You'd trade this firefighting gig for herding geese. At least they don't burn you for bad aim. Tomorrow, you face your reckoning as a maid, where survival hangs in the balance. For now, you close your eyes, the fire's crackle fading, and pray you rise from these ashes unscathed. You're roused by a faint whisper, the servants' quarters still cloaked in the pre-dawn hush, the air heavy with the must of straw and the acrid memory of yesterday's fire. Today, you face your reckoning as a maid in the Egyptian court, a moment to reflect on the impossible tightrope you've walked, through secrets, flames, and divine whims. You grab a simple linen shawl, following a silent maid through corridors where the air feels still, as if the palace itself holds its breath. The court's dazzle has faded, replaced by the stark truth of your survival, and every step feels like a verdict. You clutch the shawl, the storeroom's smoke still clinging to your thoughts, and brace for a day where your fate hangs like a reed in the wind. The palace is quieter now, its halls lit by soft lamps as dawn creeps near. You're tasked with sweeping the hypostyle hall, a vast forest of columns where the pharaoh's power looms in carved stone. Your broom moves slowly, each stroke a chance to think about the whispers of Hittite gold, the poisoned wine, the forged scrolls, all the traps you've dodged. You're no longer the wide-eyed girl who stepped into this court. You're a survivor, scarred by secrets. The mainstream fact anchors you. Maids in ancient Egypt, especially in the New Kingdom, were invisible cogs in the palace machine, their lives expendable yet essential to its churn. A quirky tidbit adds a twist. Some maids left tiny marks on walls, scratched reeds or stars, as secret signatures, proof they existed despite their erasure. Historians still argue whether these women were mere victims or quiet rebels, weaving their own subtle defiance. You're sweeping near a statue of Anubis when you overhear two guards muttering about a cleansing in the court. A purge of disloyal servants, starting soon. Your broom falters, dust rising. A purge? Every secret you've heard, every choice to speak or stay silent crashes back. Have you been loyal enough? Invisible enough? You sweep faster, but a senior maid's voice cuts through, calling you to the servants' courtyard. Your heart pounds, judgment awaits. Joke 1. You thought your village's gossip judged you harshly. Try surviving a court where silence is a plea and words a noose. Mid-morning, you stand in the courtyard, maids lined like reeds before a storm. The senior maid, her face unreadable, praises your diligence, but warns of eyes that see too much. You nod, throat dry, and catch a whisper from another maid. Someone's been named a traitor, sent to the quarries. Was it your report about the gold? The fire? You'll never know. By noon, you're sent to polish a noble's sandals, a demotion that feels like mercy. You overhear a scribe mention a new maid vanishing. Too curious, he says. You polish harder, the leather gleaming, and pray you've faded from notice. Afternoon brings a final task. Folding linens in a quiet storeroom, the air cool but heavy with your thoughts. You've survived crocodiles, fires, and plots, but at what cost? The court's a machine that grinds maids to dust, and you're still here. Barely. A younger maid whispers about a safe village far from Thebes, a dream you can't afford. Joke 2. If you survive this, you're running to that village. Call it no plots, just goats. As evening falls, you're back on your mat, the palace settling into a rare calm. The broom, the secrets, the fear, they've shaped you, but they don't own you. You've learned to listen, to bend, to survive. The court's shadows stretch long, but you're still breathing. A reed unbroken. Joke 3. You'd trade this maid's life for a fisherman's net. At least fish don't scheme. You close your eyes, the day's weight easing, and let the palace's hum fade. The night wraps around you now, soft and slow, like a Nile breeze after a storm. You're lying there, the straw mat cradling your weary bones, and the world feels smaller, quieter. The palace, with its golden traps and whispered plots, drifts further with each breath. You've walked through fire, dodged fangs, and carried secrets heavier than stone. Yet here you are, still whole. The stars outside, those same stars the astrologers read, wink through the cracks in the wall, reminding you of a life beyond these walls. Simple perhaps, but yours. Let the court scheme. Let the pharaohs dream of eternity. You're just a maid, but you've outlasted their chaos, at least for tonight. So rest now. Let your eyelids grow heavy and drift into a sleep as deep as the river's heart. The Nile flows on, and so do you, carried gently toward dawn. Good night and sweet dreams.